as we go through this process. But that's a little bit about me. I think we can probably move on off of me, Ripple. I think that's probably enough. So we are Invested Musician. This is our admin team. Ripple is the CEO and co-founder, and we have our team there who do fantastic work. When you send us emails, we all get them and get to respond as quickly as we can to you. So if you have any questions that come up, we have a team there ready to help with any questions that you have.
Yes, and Rachel is here with us in this session. So hey, Rachel. All right.
Awesome. So a little bit about us. You can check out more about Invested Musician at investedmusician.com. Also, we have a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube at the Invested Musician YouTube channel. Our goal is to help people with their playing, develop their playing, accelerate your career, and add a business element to that. A lot of musicians have really no idea about business stuff. I would say that I was in that category earlier in my career. But it's a very important part of what we do, understanding the business side, financial side of things. So we bring all those things together to help people develop their careers, basically speed your development, and get your career in a direction that you want it to be. And this is a little bit about the program and about what we sort of present. We have a 5-star musician mastery method that really works on making sure that you're using your practice time as efficiently as you can, and your planning time is really important as part of that. So that we teach how to plan, how to organize your practice, how to practice as efficiently as possible, how to perform at a high level consistently, making sure that you're putting yourself in a position to win jobs and auditions, and get organized, and making sure that things are set up in a way that you can focus on your practice when you're practicing, and you're also making the most of your other time as that happens, and building income. So we work together on goal setting, which is a really important thing, making sure that you've got structure and direction in where you're going with your career, organizing your planning, implementing that planning, and then teaching people how to adapt and continue to develop their plans as we move forward. So on to today's topic. So as we know, we're coming out of, in most countries, we're coming out of the COVID situation. In the US, a lot of orchestras have just started their first week back indoors in their own halls, and it's a pretty exciting time. What we're noticing as everyone comes back is that there is an enormous opportunity, because a lot of people have left the industry. A lot of people have left jobs. There are a lot of vacancies in orchestras. There's a lot of change that's happening, and there's also a real appetite from audiences to see live music. So as musicians, we have a lot of chance here to either audition for a job, or to create a chamber group, or to, if we've got a chamber group, to be able to reach out and put on performances that people are really hungry to see. This is definitely the case in the US. Europe is probably, I imagine, I've spoken to my teacher actually yesterday. He was talking about how things are really starting to open up in Europe. And Australia is pretty confident that they will actually open borders in November. Yay! They've closed the country for 18 months. No one's been able to get in. So things are certainly on the change. And as we see at the LA Phil, we have a lot of auditions coming up, and there's a lot of work opening up. And the interesting thing is, and we sort of thought about this a few months ago, that when orchestras come back, they would come back very slowly. We would start with small repertoire, small orchestras, and there wouldn't be a lot of freelance work. What we're actually seeing is that that's not the case. Orchestras are coming back with huge repertoire, and they want to put on the most exciting programs and the most exciting pieces with big conductors and big soloists. What that means for us is that orchestras need a lot of extra players, and they want to fill these positions. So it gives us a great opportunity to dig into that. So I think that's a little bit of background on what sort of I think is going on in the industry, and it's a very exciting time. And I think if you've been working hard, and we have a lot of people in the room today who've been working with us at Invested Musician over the last 18 months, and we know they've been working hard. But if you've been working hard over the last 18 months, you're going to be putting yourself into a position where these opportunities are going to be coming for you, and you're going to be prepared for them, which is pretty exciting. And even if you haven't, if now you realise, oh gosh, now I need to get my practice together, today's a great day to start. It's a great day to get organised, and we're going to give you some tools. The topic of today is preparing for an audition in 3 weeks. But what we're going to discuss and what we're going to learn about today is that the 3-week preparation is actually just a Kickstarter for our longer term development. Sure, we want to do a great audition in a short period of time, but if we set things up right, no matter what our lead time for an audition is, we can always use that as a development point and an area of growth for our playing that's going to help us long term. So a little bit about auditions. Rip will put that Willy Wonka golden ticket up. It can be for some of us a golden ticket, that's for sure. We want to make sure that we're as prepared as possible, but it really, auditions just create an opportunity. It creates us an opportunity to potentially win a position, but it also gives us an opportunity to extend ourselves and put ourselves under a unique pressure that we don't get in any other field, and we don't get in any other area of performing. So you think about it: if you're playing a concerto in front of an audience, or if you're playing a recital, there's no score at the end of it. There's no win or lose, and the only thing that does create that is actually an audition. But what we want to make sure in the audition process is that we don't want to focus on the result. We want to focus on our process, on how much we can improve during that process, and what we can learn about ourselves, so that we can take that information, circle it back into our practice, circle it back into our preparation and planning for the next time, and continue our development as we go. And we're going to talk a little bit about that further on. Any questions, please put them in the chat. Oh my goodness. I see a lot of writing in the chat. This is awesome. Rachel, do you have anything to tell me that I've missed while I've just been talking?
I think we're pretty good. There was one question that we had on our Instagram story yesterday. I don't know if you have a plan to address that during, or if we should pop that right now.
I think we can do that a little bit later, I reckon.
Sounds good. Then you're all covered.
Yeah, when it is appropriate, I reckon you just jump in with that question, I reckon. But I think we can. I want to get started a little bit with the plan, and then we can get into some questions. But that's it's great. It's great to see people from all over the world too. Oh, Marie, good morning. It's very early in Honolulu, but great to see that you're here. Fantastic. Okay, so 3-week countdown. 3 weeks is a long time. Now, just a show of hands, if you got called for an audition, or even if you got called for a big gig with 3 weeks lead time, what would actually write in the chat, what would your reaction be? The Berlin Philharmonic calls you up and says, in 3 weeks' time, you're going to audition for us, or we're going to get you to do a gig for the Berlin Phil. What is your first reaction? Great. Oh, you guys are very, yeah, Brendan, I think that's a pretty realistic one. For most people, I think what we would find is a balance of excitement and panic. I think that would probably be fair to say. If you're not in that category, great. But the panic would be a little bit more than the excitement. If I got that notice maybe 4 months out, I would be like, oh, great, I feel like I've got plenty of time. But 3 weeks or 2 weeks, we feel as though, panic. And generally the first thing that we do is we race into the practice room and start practicing excerpts. Anyone in that category? Yeah. Pretty common, right? So what I want to encourage us to do today is to create a plan. And what the important thing about creating a plan for an audition, and this is whether we've got 4 months or 3 months or a week, doesn't matter. If we can create a plan away from the instrument, we're going to make better decisions about how best we can improve in that amount of time leading up to the audition or the performance. Does that make sense? Planning is really, really super important. So 3 weeks out, Ripple, if you can just run through that, that'd be great. So the first thing that we want to do is reflect on our experiences from past auditions. This is going to give us information moving forward as to what we want to work on and what we want to make sure that we address as we go forward. There will be good things that happened in their previous audition, and there'll be things that were a little bit dodgy. Things that didn't quite work so well, things that threw you off, a certain area that you realize is a little bit deficient. This information is really, really important to make sure that we incorporate into our plan. The second thing that I think is really important is to make sure that you assess your position. So where are you at the moment? So what are the technical areas? And we need to be honest with this, right? So honesty is very, very important. I can tell myself I sound great, but if it's not true, when the audition comes, I'm not going to believe it. My subconscious is not going to believe it. So I need to be honest with myself, and I need to focus on what are the things that I really need to work on in whatever period of time that is. And 3 weeks, remember, 3 weeks is a long period of time. We have a lot of work that we can do and an enormous amount of improvement that we can make in 3 weeks. So what are the technique areas that you want to improve on? And then when you've got the list and you've got 3 weeks of preparation, how well do you know that list? What are the pieces on there that you're really not familiar with, or that are really ones that you know that are beyond what you are able to do at the moment? And then what are the ones that if I gave you a call at 3 in the morning, you'd be able to jump out of bed and play them, no worries. So we can take time to go through that list, and that's going to give us an idea of where we're going to spend our time when we're practicing. And then another important question is assessing what your mental plan is like. Do you have a mental plan? What happens when you get into the room in the audition? What is the plan? If there's no plan, that's the plan. Do you have a mental plan of visualizing yourself playing really well? Do you have a mental plan of being able to mentally rehearse the excerpts or the pieces? If the answer to those things is, oh, I don't really know, then it's something to be aware of. And then we want to put steps in place to address that. So the third thing that we want to look at is breaking down the list. And again, this is all before we've touched the instrument. We don't need to go into the practice room and start practicing stuff. We want to make sure that we're organized, got our plan, so that when we go into the practice room, we're executing what we know is going to be the most advantageous plan to develop us as quickly as possible in the time that we've got. So the questions that I ask myself when I see an audition list, and these are the questions that I go through when I'm setting an audition list. We have a fourth horn audition coming in the LA Phil. We've put a list together for that. This is basically the criteria that I use when I'm setting a list. I always want to keep these things in mind. So the first thing is, why is the excerpt on the list? Every excerpt on a well-constructed list, every excerpt is there for a reason. Right? It's trying to find out something. It's either something that the orchestra plays very often and they want to make sure that that person is going to fit with their group. It might be something that's particularly difficult in a certain technical area. Or it might be something that just gives a vehicle for someone to show their musicality. There's always a reason why something is on the list. Then the next question we want to ask is, if we had someone who didn't play our instrument and they were in the audition on the audition panel, what would they be looking for when you played that excerpt? So if you're a horn player and you're playing Till Eulenspiegel and a viola player is on the panel, and they look at the score, what would they be looking for? What are the elements that they would want to hear? The next thing is, what are the technical elements that we need to make sure that we address? So Till Eulenspiegel is a good example for horn players. good clarity of articulation, good variety of control through the range, good dynamic range, making sure that we've got the rhythmical elements really clear, so that we're breaking those things down and making sure that we're taking care of them. Again, this is getting us really way further down the track than jumping in the practice room and just start practicing Till Eulenspiegel and then trying to piece this together as we're playing. If we have a plan going into the practice room, we're aware, okay, I need to make sure I take care of these elements in this excerpt. That's going to give us focus. It's going to help us prepare better. And then when we get into the audition, we're going to be more confident about what we're doing. And confidence in performing and in auditions is a really, really important thing. And so the last thing in breaking down the list is, what do you want to say to the panel? What do you want to say to your audience if it's a recital or a concerto performance? What elements of your own special sauce do you want to put in there? So all of these things, very important to make sure that we apply this thinking to the list before we pick up the instrument to start to practice. Okay, now we get to the thing that we talk about in the program, in our course a lot, and I talk to my students at Colburn quite a lot about this, is thinking about how we prepare each excerpt. And once we've gone through, why the pieces are on the list, for each excerpt, we want to make sure that we focus on the technical elements. So what technically do I need to take care of? What are the musical things that I need to take care of? So what is the context? Is it a solo? Am I accompanying another instrument? What instrument is that? What sort of color do I need to play with? What are the tempos? What is actually going on at the time? We hear a lot of auditions where people have practiced the excerpt really, really well, but they've missed the fact that there's a huge rubato, or there's a huge ritardando at the end, or that there's a section, for example, in Mahler 5, at the end of the third movement, where everything continues to get faster and faster. These elements are very, very important to make sure that we take care of. And then mentally, so the third aspect, so we have technically, musically, and mentally, what do we want to do in the preparation of these excerpts? So when we turn the page and we see a Brahms symphony, what is the mental image that you have for this? What is the color of the sound that we want to get? Can you get yourself in that mood immediately? Because one of the things that we hear in auditions is that someone plays a beautiful Beethoven 7 in an audition, and then they play a beautiful Shostakovich 5, and they play a beautiful Strauss excerpt, and they play a really lovely Bach, but it all sounds the same. And one of the important things in auditions is that you can bring the panel, and the same with in a performance, that you can bring your audience into the character of that piece and make them feel as though, oh yeah, I feel as though this Mozart, it makes me feel joyful and happy. And this Shostakovich makes me feel really dark and angry, or whatever that is. So that we get a clear mental picture. So if you can go through that with each of your excerpts and have a really clear idea of what are the technical areas that you want to work on, what are the musical issues that are going to be there, and what are the musical elements that you need to make sure you include, and then mentally, what is the picture that you want to put forward? If you have a clear idea of those three things, it's going to give you a really good roadmap for addressing each of the excerpts. And then, as part of our plan, it's really important that you identify someone who is going to be able to be there to help you on the way. And you don't want someone who's just going to tell you, Andrew, you sound amazing. That is not helpful. Also, you don't want to be with someone who says to you, Andrew, that's just, why are you even bothering with this audition? It's terrible. So honesty is very important, but making sure that it's someone who you trust and someone that can give you really good informed feedback. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that plays your instrument, but someone with really good knowledge and an ability to be able to actually speak with you on an honest level. Okay. So that's setting up the plan. We haven't touched the instrument yet, but you've already made so much progress just by processing each excerpt and having a look at that list and having a really clear idea about where you want to go with each of the excerpts as they appear. So we want to keep coming back to these three pillars in everything that we do over the 3 weeks of preparation. So the technical aspects, and that also includes physical. We're going to talk a little bit about the physical side. So making sure that you're eating well, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're well rested. These are really important things as we come to the tail end of the preparation for an audition. So the musical aspect of what we're doing, how we can prepare that, and the mental aspect of how we're going to be able to deliver all the stuff that we were practicing into the audition. So the important thing to remember with the three pillars is that as far as any performance goes, but particularly for auditions, the weakest area of your preparation in either of any of those elements is the thing that is going to limit you when you get into the audition. So if you can't, so for example, I can be incredibly mentally strong, have great focus, be able to deliver my mental image and, play well under pressure, and have exactly the musical ideas that I really want. But if it's a clarinet audition, I can't play the clarinet. So if the technical side is the thing that's going to limit me, that's obviously an extreme case. But if we find that one of those areas is deficient, that is the thing that is going to hold you back. But by going through this process, it's going to point that out pretty clearly. And then you can say, okay, I need to spend time working on that area, getting that up as high as we can. Does that make sense? Any questions? One of the things that we do when we're making a plan for an audition, and then when we execute the plan, it takes out all of this stress of, oh my God, I've got an audition in 3 weeks' time. Because as you can see, there's a lot to do. And if we focus on the process of each of these steps, by default, we're going to be improving. And we're going to be at the highest level we can be when that audition day comes. And then what happens is the audition day becomes this opportunity for us to get great data, great information about where am I actually really at. If you have a great day, everything goes really well, terrific. That's great. That's going to give you more information to put back in for your next plan. If some things don't work so well, it's going to be a good indicator of like, okay, that area is where I need to continue to work. But one of the important things with auditions that we need to keep in mind is we don't control the result of the audition. We control the result of our playing, and we want to focus on presenting the best performance that we can. But if we turn up to a flute audition, for example, and Emmanuel Payud decides that he wants to take that audition, you can't control that. You can control your performance and how well you prepare. So putting our energy into the preparation is where we're going to get the best return. Okay, so 3 weeks out from the audition, Rupert, give us the sign. Oh no, we've gone past that sign.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shame. Oh well, so I'm going to have to work without the benefit of slides. You're going to have to look at my face. So what we want to do, this is just some ideas that I go through with my students and also with myself. Thank you. There we go. 3 weeks out. Okay, the countdown has begun. So now we're starting to implement the plan. So I want to look at 5 to 7 technical areas that I really want to make sure that I take care of that will permeate the entire list of excerpts. And I want to think about how can I expand those skills, or how can I actually realize, oh, actually this low register is not very good. I need to really work on that and develop that as much as I can. This is going to inform the amount of practice that we do. So what we want to do is attach exercises and studies to those, let's say 5 or 7 technical areas, and look at developing them. Still with 3 weeks to go, remember we have a long amount of time. And one of the things that we talk about in the program, and I talk with my students, is breaking my practice time into 30-minute chunks, not practicing for more than 30 minutes at a time, and dividing those 30 minutes into 5-minute segments. So that each, and this is called interleaved practice, But what we want to do is highly intense sessions of 5 minutes on different topics, and a lot of variety as we go. Now, as you put your plan together, you're going to see there's a lot of stuff to work on. So breaking things into 5-minute segments is going to help you learn things quicker. If you need to practice a certain piece for 20 minutes a day, that's totally fine. Break it up into 4 sections of 5 minutes, spread it out over 4 practice sessions. You're going to learn it much quicker, much more thoroughly. Your brain's going to recall it better as you move forward, and you're going to feel more confident. In terms of practice time, at this point, 3 weeks out, my balance of practice would still be what is pretty normal for me, which is 70% technique based, 30% pieces and excerpts in the practice room. Now the question, of course, going back to what our first feeling is when we have an offer of an audition or a solo, is like, oh my goodness, I haven't got enough time. I've got to just get in there and learn all this music. Don't worry. The 70% technique is what is the really important thing to raise our level. So remember, we talked about technical, musical, mental. We need to get our playing level as high as we can, and now is the time to continue that work, to continue that growth. So whatever out of those 5 or 7 technical areas you've identified, how can you increase them as much as you can over the next 3 weeks? It's a really important focus. And then the question is, well, hang on, how do we practice the excerpts? I need to learn this list of 25 excerpts. Why are you telling me not to practice excerpts? We don't have to practice the excerpts with the instrument. It's really, really important that we spend time, particularly at this point with 3 weeks out, that we learn the excerpts as purely as we can away from the horn or away from the flute or away from our instrument. And this is where we move to the musical aspect 3 weeks out. So what do we do musically to get ourselves to learn these excerpts? So the number one thing for me, and I do this when we play a lot of modern music in the LA Phil, the first thing that I want to do is be able to hear the piece. If it's a super modern piece, then I'll actually sit down with the piano and actually find the notes so that I can actually hear the notes in my head. I'm creating a musical image in my head as clear as I can and divorced from my limitations on the instrument. So I want to set up a playlist at 3 weeks out, and I want to listen to that playlist as many times as I can. I'm listening for, what does it make me feel? When I hear Brahms 2 solo, what is the image that comes to me? What is the emotional reaction that I have? And then also, what is going on in the orchestra? What sort of sound colors do I want to make? What is the tempo that I like? And I want to listen to a variety of recordings so that I will eventually, over listening to these multiple recordings many times, I'll find a version that I really like. Or I'll be able to find a version that I can piece together for myself that I feel is the best version for me. It might be a combination of different recordings. But listening is where you're going to learn the pieces, the works, the context, much, much quicker than if you play them in the practice room. It's going to save a lot of time, and it's going to raise your level. Because remembering, okay, we've got to improve our technique. Musically, if we have the most clear, pure musical picture that you can, and your technical level is really high, you're going to be able to produce that image beautifully on the instrument. If you pick up the instrument straight away and start playing it, the image isn't going to be clear. The technique isn't going to be as great as it could be in 3 weeks. And so we actually limit our development. And this is why, and I'm sure we've all been through this because I know that I have, is when you practice a piece over and over and over and you're like, yeah, I've played that 10 times in a row perfectly. This is going to be a great performance. And we get into the concert and we make a mistake that we've never made before. Anyone experience that? Yeah, good. Be honest. Yeah, okay. Great. And this is because the image, the maybe if we're thinking like a computer, the computer program in our brain is a little bit corrupt. But we've under no pressure. We're in our practice room, right? No pressure in the practice room. We feel comfortable. We're able to get around that little glitch in the program. But when we put under pressure, having to deliver it in a concert or in an audition, that's where the program will show up its faults. So if we can create really great clarity in our head by doing a lot of listening and really, really feel that musical picture without the limitations of the instrument, then when we bring that back to the instrument, we're going to be in good shape. The other thing that I like to do is spend a lot of time singing. So you can sing the excerpts with the recording. You can sing the excerpts on your own. One of the things that I noticed playing in my orchestra, Whitney Crockett, who is one of our faculty, he's the principal bassoon in the LA Phil. Whitney sings a lot during the orchestra, during rehearsals and during concerts. And he was singing a harmony part to what's going on. And it's funny because it's sort of contagious, and I do a bit of singing too. So we've sort of got our own little choir at the back there. And we will sing the bass line, you know, to a melody that's going on, or we'll sing along to a particular harmony. And it really helps us stay focused when we've got our bars rest. Stay in the musical picture, stay in the character of what we're doing. So singing along, singing the different parts is really going to help us to embed this really great musical picture. And then sing it with the instrument. So you can hold your instrument and sing along and actually play the fingerings to what you're doing as you're singing and really build that connection. So all of this practice is done, we're gradually building this connection between the pure musical picture and then applying that to the instrument. And then we can apply it on the instrument with slow practice, creating as great expression and clarity as we can with the musicality. And then on the mental side, 3 weeks out, we want to make sure that we've got this clear picture. So we want to be able to see that we can play the piece. We want to mentally rehearse, spend time mentally rehearsing the pieces, seeing ourselves playing them at the highest level that we can. You want to start practicing visualizing yourself playing confidently, playing how you want to present the pieces. If you don't have a centering routine, I would really highly recommend that would be something that you consider. A centering routine helps us to get focused for when we're performing, really helps with avoiding distractions or moving distractions to the side and dealing with things that may or may not be perfect in a performance. Some things go wrong, and a centering routine is really there to help us stay on track. And then also from the mental side, just making sure that you're creating a really clear picture about how you're going to start your excerpts at this point. What is the orchestral context at that point? What character do you want to get into before you start your excerpts? And 3 weeks out, or the end of 3 weeks, so after we've done a week's worth of practice, is a good time to set up your first mock audition. So get a bunch of friends around. You can bribe them with food and drinks and cats, if you like. But get them to come around and play your excerpts to them to put yourself under pressure. You're going to start feeling about how you react under that pressure, and you're going to get feedback, and this is all really useful things. So there's just a list of what are the areas that we want to make sure that we take care of at 3 weeks. Looking back on your past experiences, being honest with your weaknesses, breaking down the list. Really important that you create a plan, and as we go through the process, making sure that you stick to the plan. Choose your 5 to 7 technical areas, create a playlist and listen to the playlist and sing a lot, and start working on your mental game if you haven't already. So now we move to 2 weeks before. So one of the things, now by this point you are going to have almost all of the excerpts, hopefully, under your fingers, feeling confident. At this point, what I would start to do is make sure that I can prepare all of the excerpts at 5 different tempi. This is where we want to start expanding the difficulty of the excerpts, not just playing them to the level that we want to perform them at. We want to go beyond that. So I want you to consider this. Varying these different categories each time that you play an excerpt and making them as extreme as you can. So change the rhythm. Change the speed. Change the articulation. Change the range. So for horn players, you can do them in different transpositions. Or you can do them up an octave, down an octave. Change the dynamics. And change the style. We did a Gabrielli recording with the Coleman brass students last week, and we played one of the run throughs was in a jazz style. It was very cool. It makes it feel a little bit uncomfortable, and when we came back to the recording in the Gabrielli style, everything was a lot fresher, and a lot clearer. And in terms of tempo, I always make sure that I can play, definitely for the audition, particularly when we're talking about particularly fast pieces, 5 different tempi. Way too slow, just right, too fast, way too fast. If I can make that feel comfortable, then I'm going to be really confident going into the audition. So even with 2 weeks to go, keep expanding your technique. Keep working on the technical areas that are going to help you in the audition. And make sure that, particularly if you're a brass player, that you're continuing to work on your endurance. 2 weeks out is not the time to start tapering and start feeling really nice and comfortable. We want to keep working on that endurance, keep building strength and control. So musically, now we're starting to get into the performance side of things, and we're starting to bring these 3 elements, technical, musical, mental, together with 2 weeks to go. So start recording your excerpts if you haven't already with 2 weeks to go. Again, listening and singing through your excerpts every day, really, really important. Clarifying that picture, the purity of the picture, away from the instrument as much as you can. You can spend time at this point score reading, finding out really what is actually going on in the orchestra. The more information that you have about the context, the more clear your picture is, the more confident you're going to be going into the audition. If you are playing a piece, a concerto in the audition, now is a good time to start practicing, if you haven't before, with a pianist. Don't leave it to the day before the audition to have your first rehearsal with the pianist and find that, whoa, I didn't realize that, you know, that particular part of the accompaniment was going to throw me off. And then this is where I would start in my practice, and this is going to go outside of the 5-minute blocks, so you can plan that as well. But I would start playing through groups of 5 excerpts, like a mini mock audition or mini group of an audition, and see how that feels from a stamina point of view. See how your focus is. Be aware of what are the things that go wrong, and then address them back in your practice. And then in terms of the mental side at 2 weeks, continuing to mentally rehearse. I spend time where I'll lie in bed and just picture my Strauss concerto, see me playing it, and make sure that I can hear it exactly how I want to. I really find out pretty quickly the areas that are not so clear. And then I can practice them in my brain. And then when I apply them to the instrument, I'm going to be in much better shape. I'm going to start visualizing, seeing myself walking on stage, seeing that walk, seeing the screen, the panel in front of me, and seeing myself performing confidently how I want to perform. And at this point, the panic will set in, right? 2 weeks before, basically, for me, 2 weeks before an audition is the time where I almost send that email saying, yeah, I'm withdrawing from the audition. And it's also the time where I'm like, oh, if I only had 6 months, I'd be in really great shape. Just 6 more months. The problem with that is every audition, I need 6 more months. And if I followed that instinct, I would never have done an audition. So what we have to remind ourselves is nothing about the audition. It's what is the next step in the plan? What is the next step in our development process? What do we need to execute? What's right in front of us? And keep moving forward. All of these feelings are totally normal. If you don't feel panic 2 weeks out from an audition, you're quite unique, I think. Maybe you should be giving the class, I don't know. But it's totally normal to feel this panic, feel this stress 2 weeks out, feel shaky. Stick to the plan. Make sure that you're going back to addressing the 3 pillars and making sure that each of those elements is continuing to improve. And when you put them together, that you're really aware of what areas need to work. What areas do you need to continue to develop as you move forward to this audition day in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, the focus areas, play rounds of 5 excerpts and reflect. What went well? What happened? What actually objectively happened? Did notes not speak? Did you totally forget what the tempo was? And then when you made a mistake, how did you recover? All of this information is really important because then we can put that back into our practice as we move forward. Again, varying the difficulty of the excerpts. Perform and record, listen back to things. A recording device is going to be your best teacher because you actually hear it for yourself and then you can make the adjustments. Starting to rehearse with your pianist. Seeing yourself being on stage and performing how you want to. And then continuing developing your centering routine and your pre-shot routine. So what are the steps that you're going to take to get you into the character before you perform the excerpt and deliver that at the moment of the audition, and also how to change between excerpts. How to change from Brahms to Bruckner to Strauss. And again, this at the end of this week is a good time. So you're about a week out from the audition now to do a mock audition, but with a bit of adversity. So if you have friends who are a little bit evil, they're the ones that you want to be playing for at this point. And by adversity, I mean like moving around while you're playing, maybe talking on their mobile phone, maybe flying a paper plane around the room. I use this. This mock audition is a really important one for me. About a week out from an audition, it really teaches me that initially distractions are like, whoa, what's going on? That I need to bring that in. I need to be able to focus. I need to find tools how to be able to focus myself for the performance. Okay. 1 week to go. And then we jump to questions, I think. So a week to go. Important thing with a week to go is remembering to take your time. Take extra time in your fundamentals, in your warm-up. With a week to go, you can't improve your technique an enormous amount. You can make a lot of adjustments in terms of the excerpts. You can improve those considerably in the last week, but your technique is not going to skyrocket in the last week. But what you can do in the last week, if you're just playing excerpts, if you submit to the panic of, oh my God, I need to play this another 20 times to feel confident, which you don't, we can lose a lot of technique. We can create and dive back into bad habits very, very quickly. So in the last week, I like to take more time warming up, more time with my fundamentals, and make my routine even simpler. Be clear about your tapering plan. So if you're a brass player, you want to feel fresh going into the audition. I used to like to take the day off before the audition, like I have a light day before the audition. I don't find that now. I find 2 days before the audition or 2 days before a big performance will be my light day, and I'll have a normal day the day before the audition, and the day of the audition I'll just do a longer warm-up. That for me makes me feel stronger. I found if I have a really like a very gentle day, I feel a little weak the following day. But make a decision, figure out what works for you, and then assess if that works or not, and adjust the plan for the next time. Again, practicing rounds of excerpts, getting used to this feeling of playing through excerpts, not stopping. So you're getting used to the performing aspect, and also making the transition from one style to the next. So you're putting all of these elements together. You've got the technical area that you're working on and is really solid at this point. Musically, you're really clear about what you're doing. And then mentally, you're going to be able to make that shift to transport you from the middle of a Brahms symphony to the beginning of Bruckner 4, if that's what you need to do. Again, keep your exercises and studies simple and enjoyable. This is the week where you want to play stuff that's fun. And you also want to watch fun television shows, if you watch television. Or you want to be around fun people. Or you want to go to a comedy show because you're feeling stressed. It's normal to feel stressed a week before an audition. So you need to create balance. So it's okay to, go to a fun movie. Or go for a walk. Also make sure that you keep some physical activity, because there's a lot of stress that you're going to be building up at this time. So at this point in the last week, I like to cut off any sort of caffeine related stuff, anything that's going to be dehydrating. I want to cut out. I want to make sure that I simplify my eating so that I'm feeling really good physically. I like to do, sort of regularly do some walks and make sure I don't do a lot of running. So I'm not going to be going into that. Now is not the time to start a new fitness regimen. Just keep things nice and simple. But more water and more sleep are really, really important things. Again, from the musical side, make sure that you're doing a lot of listening, singing. And I find at this point, if I turn myself into a conductor, that also helps. So I become a very highly paid maestro for all the excerpts. And remember, at this point, you want to release, you've got a lot of feedback from teachers and from people who've been listening to you. You don't, in an audition, you don't have to be correct. You don't, and you're not going to be correct because there are probably a dozen different versions of how the panel members would like particular excerpts to go. Convincing is the key to auditions. If you're convincing to the panel, they will love it, even if it's not exactly what they would do. But if you're trying to be correct, if you're trying to, I hope the panel likes this, then it's going to come across as unconvincing, and unconvincing is not going to help you in an audition. So mentally, really refining your centering routine, visualizing walking on stage in a confident way, and being really focused on how you want to perform. I like to visualize seeing the panel and being on the panel and seeing the panel being really happy with how I play. So I'm sort of looking at it from that perspective. But really focusing on how I want to perform, how I want to present my excerpts, and committing to that, and committing to going for it. Go for it. So we want to get ourselves into this mentality on the day and in the last week of preparation. If we focus on, this excerpt's no good, or this is not so great, or I'm not feeling so great, or if we try and fake it, oh yeah, I know all these excerpts are all great. That's not going to help us. What we want to focus on is, yeah, I've done the work. I'm at the highest level that I can possibly be for this audition, and I'm going to let it go and go for it and trust what I've done, knowing that I'm going to get some really great feedback from myself about how I reacted to that situation. It's going to continue my growth and development as I move forward. There are going to be dozens of auditions coming up and dozens of performance opportunities. So the audition that you're taking, the next one in line, it might be the one that you win. It might be your dream job. That's great if it is. But if it isn't, it's fine. There's going to be another one. And if you prepare well, if you stick to the plan, it's going to give you really great development, great growth through that process, and great information to add to that plan for the next time. So key takeaways from this morning: 3 weeks is a very long time. No need to panic. You need a plan. If you don't have a plan, if the plan is go to the practice room and do as much practice as you can, you might get better, but you're not going to get better as much as you possibly could. Stick to the plan. Don't fall victim to the thing of 2 weeks out. Oh my God, I need to go back in and practice Schoenberg Chamber Symphony for 3 hours. Is that part of the plan? No. Part of the plan is a balanced approach, taking care of the technical, musical, and mental aspects. And that's going to help you improve as much as you can in that period of time. Have the focus be on your improvement and your development and growth rather than the result of, I hope I win this audition. You don't control that outcome. Really, really key thing for me, and this is when I started really doing a good job with auditions and starting to audition well, was understanding that the preparation away from the instrument is as important, if not more important, than what I do when I'm in the practice room playing. And then super key is to find a mentor. Find someone who you can trust, who's going to give you good information, who's going to be honest with you. Okay. So on our website, you can download the Audition Domination Guide. and of course you can come and work with us. That's certainly a possibility, and we'd love to talk to you. But I think Ripple, should we? Are there any questions that came in?
Yeah, but I just wanted to quick mention that so what's next is we've got a performance challenge coming up in early November. So again, these are the 5, components of our musician mastery method that we teach at Invested Musician. And we covered a little bit on auditions today. So the next free session we're going to do is going to be about performing. And so we've got this 5-day challenge planned. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to send information about it out shortly, but we hope you can all join us and see how much you can improve in these 5 days here with some of our techniques. And also I wanted to let everyone know that for just the people who are attending this session, we're not making this public, but we wanted to follow up. I know we've gotten some questions in the chat we're going to try to cover, but if we can't get to all of them, or if you want to do a one-on-one with Andrew or me on the business side, we're offering a very limited amount of coaching sessions. So you can go to this link, and maybe Rachel, you can put that in the chat and find time, or you can just email us and we can figure out a time that might work for you. But it's just an opportunity for you to dive deeper into some of the questions you might have about auditions and this topic, or anything else about what's going on within those 5 areas of what we see as sort of the keys to succeeding and making it in the industry. So we look forward to chatting with you more on that if that's something you're interested in.
Fantastic. Yeah, I would love to hear what things we can help you with, what thoughts you have on auditions or performing, or if you've got a particular area where you're sort of struggling with. Very happy to make time to have a chat about that and help where we can. I know that for me, I've had a lot of challenges during my career, and there continue to be challenges. So it's really setting this mentality of continuing to learn, continuing to grow, and experiment with things, and keep moving forward. So yeah, it'd be fun to talk to you. And I noticed Marty Mangrum is here this morning. Congratulations, Marty. Marty won an audition. Marty is a former student of mine at Colburn, and Marty is living in Germany now, and Marty won an audition for the radio orchestra in Saarbrücken. Fantastic achievement, Marty. Just amazing. Everyone at Colburn and here is so proud of you, and you did an awesome job. You must have done a fantastic audition yesterday, so congratulations. Well done.
Andrew has been talking about you all morning, Marty, but since you woke up, so yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's really great. So shall we jump to some questions, Ripple?
Yes. Okay, so there are a lot of questions.
I have them all listed separately, so you don't have to scroll. And just a reminder to everyone, if you have to go because we're almost at time, no worries. Just remember, we will send a recording of this out later, so you can just jump to the end of the video recording if you want to catch answers to questions if you have to go. So a couple of our questions we had were, Andrew, how might you change the plan for audition prep, say if you're working as a musician and you have to play almost every day, or if you're trying to balance a lot of other like just daily school life and work aspects?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it goes. I mean, this goes to even when we're not preparing for an audition. Is that organization and planning is such an important thing, and making sure that we prioritize our practice. This is for me is the key. So the first part of the plan is to identify where are times during the day that I can practice and make sure that I'm actually getting productive practice done. So knowing yourself when you practice the best or when you're the most focused, try and focus on those times. And then when we're thinking about, okay, if you're playing at work, if you've got a job already, or if you're playing gigs, how can you utilize that time to improve your technique, to work on the areas that are in your plan, so that you actually utilize that as a vehicle for improvement rather than just something that you have to get through before you get to your practice session. So life gets in the way, right? But when we're preparing for an audition, we've got 3 weeks coming for an audition, we have to move the practice to a really high level of priority. So we need to make that time. It may mean that you need to get up a little earlier or you need to go to bed a little later. But putting that in your schedule and really committing to that and getting into that habit is going to help that development, definitely.
Great. And next question, with so many auditions being held online due to current circumstances, would you change much in your preparation if you have multiple days to record rather than an in-person audition? That's
a really good question. It's something that we've talked about in the program over the last 18 months. Being really interesting. I think the best idea for me personally, and everyone has to sort of figure this out for themselves a little bit, but if you treat the first day of recording as the goal for the performance and treat it as a performance, you're going to perform and give your best performance on that particular day. And the goal is to get it all captured in that day. That is really going to help to give you focus for your preparation. If you know that you've got 2 or 3 days to record, you're going to get to the first day of recording and you're like, yeah, if it goes okay, it's fine, I'll sort it. But I've always got tomorrow. And so what ends up happening is we don't actually ever get to this point where at that moment in time we want to give our best. We're sort of always holding something back. So I would suggest really set a time, make it a performance time. So 12:30 on Monday is my recording time, and that's going to be the one where I'm going to go for it. If things go disastrously wrong, you've got the other days that you can possibly do it, but I would make that the real focus and work towards that day and gear your preparation to that performance.
Question on how you feel about randomizing your excerpts for a mock audition versus thinking like a panel and trying to set it up based on order and function?
That's a great question. And I think trying to predict what is going to happen in an audition is one of the least helpful things that you can do. Because having sat on probably 50 audition panels, the thing that and played almost 30 myself, the thing that I've learnt over time and talking to my colleagues at the LA Phil is no 2 auditions are the same. No 2 auditions are, even for the same orchestra, even with the same list, no 2 auditions. I've done audition for a particular orchestra. I've done 3 auditions for that particular orchestra, exactly the same position, exactly the same repertoire. Every audition totally different. Different order of excerpts, different way that they set up the audition, different amount of playing, every audition totally different. So trying to predict what's going to happen is a fruitless task. I like the idea of, cutting up, because I'm quite tactile, cutting up your excerpts, or not actually the actual excerpts, but the names. So writing the names of the excerpts on a piece of paper, throwing them in a basket and just randomly pulling out half a dozen and playing them. The more difficult it is for you to make those transitions, and the more random it is, if you can refine that skill. Because remember, all of this process is about refining our skill set and improving and developing our playing and our skills. So one of the bigger challenges that people don't realize is making the mental shift between excerpts. So if you've got 5 random excerpts and they're really obscure and they're all crazy, and one may be really physically taxing and the next one might be totally opposite, that's really great in your preparation because it's going to put more strain on that mental muscle, and also physically you're gonna learn how to how to sort of get around that. Generally in auditions, panels, the goal of the panel is to have people play well. In LA Phil, this is always, most of the thought goes into how can we set up a list that enables people to play at their best. That's really hard to do, but not every orchestra does that. Some orchestras are like, we want to set up a list that makes it really hard for everyone to play well. I don't know why they do that, but that's what happens sometimes. So the more difficult you can make it for yourself in your practice, the more challenges you have, the more information you're going to get. again, you're going to be able to identify these areas of weakness and work on them away from the practice room.
Great. Next, Amanda, who had to leave for a theory class, but she asked about what tools you use for practice planning and if you've tried, like, say, writing tools like Notion. And I'll let you answer, but we do have a practice plan that we have inside of our Invested Musician program. There's a few ways you can do it, though. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I like there's an app called Seconds Pro that I've talked about in our workshops before and definitely in the course. And Seconds Pro is, and you can use any fitness timer. Seconds Pro is simply a fitness timer, interval timer, and you can set that up on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, with the different chunks of practice that you're going to do set out in different times, and you can actually attach a tuner to that. You can attach metronome to that. You can actually upload music into that app and have everything sitting there so that you just press a button at the start of the session and off you go, and you just follow the plan. We actually did, way back last summer, we did a warm-up session with Seconds Pro. So you can check that out on the YouTube channel. We use Seconds Pro for the whole session, breaking things up into small chunks, and then basically you practice for the amount of time that's allocated, and then when that timer goes off, you move on to the next thing. Why? Because that's the plan.
Next question was, how would you recommend preparing for sight reading for a major audition?
That's a really, really good question. I think for major auditions, sight reading is not really sight reading. Sight reading in a major audition is standard repertoire, normally with the section or with the music director. I've had an audition once where the music director came up and accompanied me on the piano for the sight reading, and it was an opera aria. I would just as part of your ongoing preparation. And I think one of the important things, I mean, today's been all about, what happens, how do we make a 3-week preparation? But ongoing, we want to keep adding to this library of knowledge so that we're not starting from zero with 3 weeks to go. We're starting from, I've got a pretty warm list of excerpts that I feel reasonably sort of confident with. And then, then I can sort of take the ones that I need and ramp that up. For example, for the Melbourne audition that I won more than 10 years ago now, actually. But in Melbourne, the only excerpt on the list, in Melbourne they had 50 excerpts on the list. It was a massive list. It was ridiculous. But I had to play basically everything on that list to win that job. It was the hugest audition I've ever experienced. But the only excerpt on that list that I really didn't know that well was Schoenberg Chamber Symphony. So the first week, and we only got the excerpts 2 weeks before. So we got the excerpts, 50 excerpts, 2 weeks before the audition. But I followed the plan, and the first thing that I did was to just take time to go through those excerpts, and multiple times. And the more I went through the list, I'm like, this is fine. I know how to prepare this. I know how to prepare this. This I know. Schoenberg Chamber Symphony, okay, that I don't know, so I need to set a specific plan about making sure every practice session I address this. And I had a plan for how to approach that. And after 2 days, I was nowhere near playing that piece. But I didn't panic. I didn't change the plan because I knew, okay, I'm going to stick to the plan because that's the plan was the best thing I could create. So for sight reading, I think as an ongoing thing, we want to be always trying to expand our knowledge of the standard repertoire, standard excerpts. And even stuff that is a little obscure, if it comes up relatively often in orchestras, there's a chance that might get asked in an audition.
We just had a question from Marie in chat. If you have had a big change for the better in your playing, do you have suggestions for dealing with any past emotional baggage with any audition or excerpts where you've supposedly fixed the problem that created that baggage in the first place?
I have a lot of baggage, but I think it's interesting going back to pieces that you played with the old mechanism or old style of playing, and then when they come up and you've made that change. And I think I always find that if I want to relearn the excerpt in a way that's very attached to the new level of technique that I'm playing. So I will slow things down and really make sure that the first thing I do is not play through the excerpt or the piece at the tempo or how that piece was performed. I want to really give time to embed a new connection of the new technique to that old piece, and then I find that if I can really focus on the good elements of what or the good changes that I've made, then we make a really strong connection with that piece, and then you form a new piece. For me, more so de concert. I don't know if anyone's played that piece, but I played that in high school with a very different technical limit that and there were always problems for me, and now I play that piece and I don't have those issues. But if I'm not careful, I can slip back into those old habits because old habits are still there, whether we like it or not. The habits that we had 10 years ago are still there. We just hopefully have developed stronger habits to overtake those. But we want to take time, slow things down to reinforce the new habit, reinforce that's the habit that you want to be putting in place. Does that answer the question, Marie? Sort of. Okay, great. Thanks. Cool.
All right. Well, I think we will probably call it, and just thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. It's been great seeing you.
Thank you, everybody. Awesome. So please check out the website. We have a new program that is up and running at the moment. We have some fantastic. In the Kajabi course, we have a huge amount of video content, and then we've put a huge amount of support around that. So a lot of live coaching and feedback for those sessions. So please check out the website. And again, if you want to have a session with me, please sign up on the calendar link. It'd be great to talk to you and find out how we can help and what areas you're struggling with and what ideas we can work with. Yeah.
Awesome. And we will send you info about the performance challenge in a few weeks. So we hope to see you guys all there also.
Cool.
Right.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
Friday, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.